Hello there, and thank you for joining me in another episode of my artist series, Little Known Facts. Here by popular demand are 10 little-known facts about Salvador Dali. I am Jason Kanow. Salvador Dali has never ceased to fascinate us, and today, many years after his death, his name still resonates just as strongly as it did in his heyday. Salvador Dali was a leading figure in surrealism, alongside the likes of Magritte, who impressed people with his eccentricity, unusual appearance, and uncommon manners. He is mostly remembered for his artworks, and rightly so, but there are a few things that you should know about this genius. He was a jack of all trades. A real Renaissance man, Dali took an interest in cinema. This curiosity led him to make several films such as An Illusion Dog and The Golden Age. He also designed the set for Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound. Furthermore, he dabbled in architecture, notably the spectacular Dali Theater Museum in Spain, where Dali is now buried. He even participated in the world of fashion, creating a hat in the shape of a shoe, a pink belt with lips for a buckle, and a white dress covered with lobster print. And that's not all. He also collaborated with some of the most iconic photographers of his time, such as Man Ray and Philip Halsman. He worked with Walt Disney. Dali greatly admired Walt Disney, whom he called the great American surrealist. In 1946, a mutual admiration led to a cartoon called Destino, which was finally completed and released in 2003. The film featured a score by Mexican composer Armando Dominguez and runs for a total of 6 minutes. He collaborated with the commercial world. Salvador Dali designed the logo for Chupa Chups lollipops in 1969, and it is still used today. He advised the founder, who was also a friend, to include the logo on the lollipops in order to increase the consumer's brand awareness. He also collaborated with Gap in a campaign that had the slogan, Salvador Dali wore khakis, as well as creating 4 covers for Vogue. However, this was not always well received. Dali's eccentricity and his commercial mindset often irritated members of the art world at the time. Thus, Andre Breton, father of the Surrealist movement, nicknamed him Avida Dollars, an anagram of the artist's name. Dali was known for his love of money, a love which he had no problem embracing. He was certainly not loved by everyone. Salvador Dali, despite being a celebrated artist today, was not everyone's cup of tea, even within the Surrealist movement. Many of the original Surrealists sympathized with communism and therefore were against Dali's support of Hitlerism. They sought to exclude him for his fascist beliefs. The English writer George Orwell was also not a supporter of Dali as a person after reading his autobiography, in which Dali recounts events from his youth. However, Orwell still credited him as a very skilled artist. He was friends with Amanda Lear. Amanda Lear, a French model and singer, took painting lessons from Dali during her youth and was one of his greatest muses. She was a protege of the Dali Gala couple and spent many summers with them in their home in Port Yegat. Paintings she posed for include The Dream of Hypnos in 1965 and Venus in Furs in 1968. Their close friendship lasted more than 15 years. He developed a new style called nuclear mysticism. After the war, Dali developed a new style for his work that sought to represent science and Catholic imagery. This new style was born out of Dali's hope that new scientific discoveries would unlock the unknown surrounding religion. The pieces he created during this time, while still being otherworldly and surreal, focused less on personal subjects and more on universal scientific themes. He had an incredibly intense marriage. He met his lifelong partner Gala, who was Dali's mistress and then wife, when she was still married to Paul Eluard, a famous French surrealist poet. It was with Eluard that she visited Dali in his home in Figueras, Spain. The pair fell in love immediately and got married 3 years later. The Dali-Gala coupling soon became one of the most legendary couples of the world of art. Gala acted as Dali's other half in every sense of the word, so much so he signed paintings with both of their names, as he said she was his constant inspiration. After Gala's death in 1982, Dali broke the Spanish law that banned people from moving corpses without necessary permission by driving with her body back to their home in Port Yegat. He believed he was the reincarnation of his brother. Having died just 9 months before Dali's birth, he believed he was a true reincarnation of his brother. This is understandable, as at age 5, Dali's parents took him to his brother's grave and told him just that. Further confirmation came from the fact that they shared the same name. Later in Dali's career, he went on to paint his deceased brother in Portrait of My Dead Brother. He was inspired by Sigmund Freud. In the 1920s, Dali read The Interpretation of Dreams by Sigmund Freud. This enlightenment acted as inspiration throughout his career. In fact, Dali had what can only be described as an obsession with Freud. He describes in his autobiography dreams of imagined conversations with the two of them. When he finally met Freud in 1938, he took his painting metamorphosis of Narcissus with him. Freud's influence meant that unlike the likes of Magritte, whose works were playful, Dali's works often had a darker tone, perhaps adding to the allure of his character. His methods for accessing the surreal were often unconventional. To be able to come up with surreal landscapes and images, Dali believed he had to access his subconscious. To do this, he forced himself to enter a state of delirium. A way of achieving this was to fix his gaze on one object in order to see different images in and around it. This was called the paranoid critical method. Another technique was to keep himself in a continuous state of being neither asleep nor awake. He would sit with a bowl and a spoon, and whenever he fell asleep, the noise from the spoon falling into the bowl would wake him. I would like to thank Artsper Magazine for providing the content for this recording, and again to you, dear viewers, thank you for tuning in, and a special thank you to those who have liked and subscribed to my channel. For more examples of my work, please click the About Me link in my profile. I am Jason Kanow.